Welcome to the Specialty In-Basket Needs Project Phase 3 training video. In this phase, we will guide you on how to develop the future state and put together an action plan to make the future state possible. So let's get started. As always, we encourage you to watch this video with your team and have the Phase 3 workbook on hand to follow along. If you don't have it with you, you can find it in the workbook in the Phase 3 folder in Box. Please close any unnecessary applications on your laptop and silence your phone to refrain from distractions. There will be discussions and working sessions with your team throughout the video, so feel free to pause the training video as needed. This video will recap what we covered in the Phase 2 training video, and then we will jump into Phase 3 of the project cycle, which is developing a future state and an action plan. From there, we will conclude with next steps. As you are aware, there are 4 phases in the SPIN project as shown here. Let's do a recap on what your team accomplished in Phase 2. By now, you and your project team should have completed a deeper data dive and observations, created a current state map, finalized your problem statement, completed the 5 whys to identify the root causes, and lastly, organized the root causes based on their impact to the gap. Please ensure that you and your team have completed all the checklist items for Phase 2 before moving on to Phase 3. The purpose of Phase 3 is to have the team identify improvement ideas that will address the root causes identified from Phase 2. Once the team has identified the improvement ideas, an action plan and an implementation plan will be drafted to help the team effectively launch their improvement ideas. Let's get started into the steps for Phase 3. Phase 3 consists of 4 steps. They are developing an action plan, designing standard work, developing an implementation plan, and going live with the future state and action plan. In Step 11, you and your team will develop an action plan. As a team, you'll organize the goals and actions based on the most important causes. Let's get into more detail about what developing an action plan will look like. So what is an action plan? An action plan is the 4th quadrant of the A3. It lists the actions that must be taken to address the root causes you choose to work on. It creates transparency and ownership within the team by listing who is responsible for what actions and by when. Let's take a look at what an action plan looks like. An action plan is essentially a table that encompasses the goals or root causes, the action step or steps that will be implemented for each goal, the person or team responsible for completing the action step, and the deadline. So how do you fill out an action plan? You can start by writing the goals or root causes you have chosen to address. You then write the action steps for each goal or root cause. This can be done by answering the questions, what will we do? How will we do it? And how will we measure it if it is successful? Lastly, assign a team member to each action item. You can assign more than one person to the action item and include a deadline of when you need the action item to be completed. Let's talk about some tips to create an action plan. Don't try to address all your goals at once. Pace out your action plan so you can learn the impact of your interventions. Create a plan to implement your solutions and communicate them with the broader team. This is a team effort, so work together. Some common action items include creating standard work, training new standard work, measuring results, and holding PDCAs to continuously improve the work. You have the option of mapping out your future state. This ensures that the action plan you and your team create aligns with your new workflow vision. Here's an example of an action plan. This team identified 5 root causes and plugged them into the goals column. From there, they identified action steps to help address the causes. Notice how the team addressed the causes by developing standard work and setting up training sessions with EIS. They also assigned 2 team members to most action steps and paced their interventions by rolling out 2 interventions at a time. Now that you and your team have developed an action plan, complete the handout in your workbook entitled Questions to Consider Completing the Action Plan with your team. This will be useful for referencing later. Feel free to pause this video and take the time needed to review your action plan and answer these questions with your team. Let's move into step 12, which is designing standard work. In this step, the team will create documentation for a sustainable process that can be trained and maintained. So what is standard work? Standard work are any documents or tools that capture current best practices for performing a process. These can be in the form of a job breakdown or a job aid. A job breakdown is a document that can be used for training, aiding, and learning how to do a job. A job breakdown typically details each step of the process. A job aid is any tool that provides simple instructions and visuals on how to complete a task, such as a checklist. Standard work creates a foundation for improvement. Team members can collectively focus on standard work, and leaders can measure success of improvement against a common baseline. It is helpful to make a list of standard work you need to write. You can get some ideas by looking at the existing standard work related to patient messages and calls that other divisions have developed. The SPIN Toolkit includes a library of standard work documents that you can refer to and utilize so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You and your team can follow the Adapt-Adopt method by utilizing previously written standard work and tailor it to your department. Or you and your team can adopt the standard work workflows as your own. Here's what the standard work library looks like in the toolkit. Based on the problem you and your team are trying to solve, you may refer to the standard work subfolder and utilize the standard work. You don't have to use all the standard work documents in the library. Feel free to take what you need and make it your own. If you don't find something here that fits, feel free to design your own new standard work or come to office hours for help. For example, if the team is working on reducing the number of messages per thread, they can utilize the grooming job aid as part of their own standard work to train the staff on the purpose and steps to groom the physicians' calendars. By grooming physician schedules, teams can help create better access and more open slots for patients to be seen. Therefore, instead of messaging back and forth, patients can be scheduled with their physician much sooner due to more access. This helps to decrease the back and forth number of messages per thread. The team can also leverage the routing grid to empower staff on how to address incoming messages and route them to the appropriate team members. If you have established regular project meetings, our suggestion is at this point, the team completes the identified standard work and then returns to this video once done, or meet at a subsequent meeting to complete the remainder of the steps for Phase 3 outlined in this video. If you would like to continue the video now, that is also okay, but please commit to creating the standard work pieces. It is best to make a list of all standard work and assign it to team members to draft and then bring back to the group to review and edit together. Let's move into step 13, which is developing an implementation plan. In this step, the team will create a training plan, a measurement plan, and a communication plan in preparation for go live. An implementation plan consists of 3 subplans: a training plan, measurement plan, and a communication plan. A training plan is a template that details training logistics, including who, where, when, how to prepare for training, and the content that will be trained for each session. A measurement plan is a template used to track metrics, including how often the metrics need to be refreshed, by who, and the data source. A communication plan is a template to organize who, when, how, and what the team will communicate to the stakeholder groups and the broader team. So let's go into details for each subplan, starting with the training plan. The team should be intentional in how they prepare and train their frontline team members before launching any new standard work, processes, or workflows. Be thorough when creating the training plan. If you feel the training content may be too much for one session, consider breaking down the training into smaller sessions. The content should be digestible for the team to learn. Utilize the training plan template in your toolkit to help keep track of when and how you plan to train the frontline staff members. Make sure to use the standard work when training. Don't just teach from memory. Now let's discuss how to create a measurement plan. A measurement plan details what data you will need to collect in order to understand if your changes are being implemented and if they are making an improvement. Think about your gap in box 1 and make sure you will be able to measure if your changes are closing the gap between your current performance and your target. When putting together a measurement plan, you want to ensure that the following details are included for each measure, including the definition of the measure, how it will be measured, what is the source for that measure and data owner source, who is collecting it, and by when, progress status of measure collection and analysis, where will it be displayed? For example, huddle boards and tiered boards are a great place to showcase data from improvement efforts. Here is a measurement plan template that you and your team can use to keep your metrics visible and organized. This can be found in your workbook and toolkit. Let's jump into how to develop a communication plan. When launching your go-live plan, you want to ensure that the broader team is appropriately communicated with about the new changes that will be taking place. The team should determine how to best communicate the changes with each group of stakeholders, including the appropriate forum, such as existing meetings, daily huddles, and special meetings. Who should make the communication and the key message. Utilize the communication plan template in your toolkit to help keep track of how and what you plan to share with the stakeholders. If you have established regular project team meetings, our suggestion is at this point, the team creates an implementation plan and then returns to this video once done, or meet at a subsequent meeting to complete the remainder of the steps for Phase 3 outlined in this video. If you would like to continue the video now, that is also okay, but please commit to doing the implementation plan. Let's get into the last step of Phase 4, which is going live with your future state and action plan. Now that you've created your future state and action plan, let's plan to launch it. Your action plan will require the SPIN team to prepare in advance. This is an important step as preparation will help define the success of your launch. Prior to the launch, ensure the following steps are completed. Standard work is complete. The workspace is set up and employees are ready. Equipment or resources are available for use. Design a system to capture and track feedback once the action plan has been implemented. Schedule huddles and an end-of-day debrief with the team. Communicate the launch of the future state to the broader team. Once you and your team have completed the preparation for the launch, you are ready to go live with your new standard work. That concludes the steps for Phase 3. Before you wrap up this phase and move into Phase 4, it is important that you and your team have completed the deliverables for Phase 3. Review each of the deliverables and ensure you've completed them in a timely manner. Here is a suggested timeline for completing Phase 3 and its deliverables. The work for Phase 3 should not take more than 4 weeks to complete. During Week 1, the team should watch the Phase 3 video and then start working on developing an action plan. During Week 2, the team should finalize the action plan, start drafting the standard work documents, and lastly, check in with tier leaders or attend OA office hours. In Week 3, the team should complete putting together the standard work documents and then start developing an implementation plan. From there, communicate any updates to the broader team and initiate any frontline training on new standard work. In the 4th week, the team should finalize any frontline training and prepare the materials or resources so that everyone is prepared for go live. Once everyone is ready, the team can launch the work. If the team's timeline plan doesn't fall into the approximate 4 weeks, please come to the OA office hours or discuss it with your Tier 2 leaders. As part of your checkpoint review, answer the questions on the screen with your team before moving to the next phase. Feel free to pause the video to have this discussion now. Thank you for watching the Phase 3 video. If you have completed all the deliverables for Phase 3, please feel free to move on to the Phase 4 video. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Organizational Advancement team for additional support or sign up for office hours.